Hilton, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're very busy and you're all the way over in another side of the world. So I believe it's like evening right now in
Really?
South Africa, right? Yeah. So thank you for taking time.
It's early evening.
Early
Yeah,
evening,
no
right?
problem. It's my pleasure.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, FFA members, I'm pretty sure are interested and are gonna be watching your interview right now. So let's dive into it. So questions I've got for you. Can you tell us a bit about your background and professional journey in the field of anti-fraud prevention?
Yeah, absolutely. So unlike most people that will join this community, I think, I am very new to the world of fraud fighting. So I am into month 10 of being a fraud fighter. And I know it's crazy, but I dove headfirst into this world and have immersed myself into the world of fraud fighting. And so I've kind of become known a little bit in the space within this community and hopefully kind of accepted by the community. And I'm a very big advocate on LinkedIn and using LinkedIn as a platform for fraud fighting or for kind of sharing the message of fraud fighting. And I kind of got into it selfishly in the sense of why I'm in that space and why I'm creating the content I create. It's really for me to learn the world of fraud fighting so that when I talk to the people that are in the space, I'm educated about it, I understand it, and I can resonate with what's happening. Because at the end of the day, I've been selling cutting edge technology for close to 18 years. And I get to now marry that experience of sales with my passion to deliver trust, honesty, and kind of fairness, essentially. And that's really what we do over at Shield, who is a vendor to the fraud fighting community. So, yeah, I'm new to the space, but very excited about it and absolutely loving it.
That's amazing to hear. I usually hear that when you get into this industry, it's always by accident or not on purpose. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Are you
yeah.
enjoying it?
It, I am indeed. I mean, there's a lot of people who say there's no school for fraud fighters. You progress from other careers into it, and so I'm still really in the field of sales and matching technology with needs to prevent fraud. So I'm really a fraud fighter by proxy, by virtue of the fact that I sell technology to the fraud fighters who use that technology to really stop the bad guys. So I'm not 100% on the front line, but yeah, you do. It is weird how you get into it, but I think when you get into it, you find that hidden passion that's there, and that's what drives you is to really kind of stop the bad guys. It gives you kind of a greater purpose to what you're doing. So yes, I love it.
That's awesome. I love hearing that it's a passion of yours now. Okay,
Mm.
next is expertise and achievements. So, what specific areas within anti-fraud prevention do you specialize in? And I know you mentioned sales, but can you talk a bit more about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I sell technology, but the technology does a very specific thing. So, we really focused on device first risk intelligence and stopping fraud kind of at its root cause. So, think physical devices and fake accounts. So, if you can get to the bottom of the fraud problem or trace back to the root cause when you're doing a root cause analysis, right at the root, before anyone can get onto a digital ecosystem platform or anything like that, they have to come in via some bit of hardware. They have to come in via a mobile phone or a laptop or whatever it is. And so if we are very, very good at identifying those physical devices as they enter into your ecosystem, and in marrying that up with a whole lot of complex data and associations to tell you whether there are fake accounts and malicious activities happening from that. So really, summed up, device first risk intelligence, kind of a first principles approach to fighting fraud.
That is very interesting to hear. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Okay, so how about share a notable accomplishment or project related to anti-fraud prevention that you're particularly fond of?
I would say that, or in in terms of a fraud fighting kind of prevention that I'm particularly proud of, um, I think every single one of our client ecosystems that is leveraging our technology because they're creating these fair playing fields for both their users, their platform themselves, and some of them are businesses that have multiple dimensions to their applications. They'll have consumer side applications as well as driver or rider sides if they delivery and ride hailing type applications and that type of thing, or marketplaces. I mean, if you're somebody using a marketplace, you want to be able to trust that the reviews are legitimate. They're not coming from fake accounts or bots or people using auto clickers and things to leverage technology to boost the profile of their store, for instance, when it's actually being done maliciously. So really it's about enabling trust across all of these ecosystems. So I'm really proud of all of those client relationships that we have and where they're using our technology. And then I'm kind of just proud of how you can get into this world. And like I say, I went into it to learn about fraud when I started to create the content, and so that I could become a part of the community as opposed to just be a sales guy knocking on the door saying, hey, you should buy our technology. So I'm proud of the fact that I've been kind of accepted into that community. I mean, we're on this call now because I'm in that space, and obviously that's testament to that. So I'm proud of that because that's the approach. That was my goal from the beginning, was to learn and earn trust.
That's awesome. Thanks, Hilton, for that. So in your
Sure.
experience, what are some common challenges faced in anti-fraud prevention, and how do you approach solving them? Or maybe like a specific instance where you successfully addressed a unique or complex like anti-fraud prevention issue.
Sure. So I think common challenges across the industry is, or at least that I see in my limited experience, and I see this outside of even fraud, obviously, but it's very common, and the impact of it is higher within fraud, is the siloed functions within business, because you have people owning product roadmap within a business, you have technology people owning kind of the engineering resources that can do integrations and do the work needed to solve some of the fraud cases using technology. And then you have trust and safety departments and risk departments and fraud departments. And sometimes those three are kind of wrapped into one. And they don't have engineers or they don't have technical resources and that kind of thing. And so budgets are distributed across these disparate teams. And then communication isn't necessarily happening where everybody understands the impact of fraud and how it affects user journeys, user experience, how it affects technology integrations, how it affects revenue, bottom line. It's all interconnected, and it's kind of used to be seen as a cost to do business. I mean, fraud, but it really isn't. And so bringing these silos together and having open communications, or having a better structure to how fraud departments work with businesses is potentially a solution to that. But that's definitely a problem that still persists. Well, you had a second part to your question, which was kind of highlighting an instance where we kind of successfully addressed a unique or a complex fraud case. So I don't, as I say, I'm a fraud fighter by proxy. People use our technology, but we see our technology used for really, really cool stuff. And so some of the things that kind of spring to mind immediately are where we've uncovered actual fraud syndicate headquarters using our technology on certain ecosystems. We're able to pinpoint various data points that lead to the uncovering of an actual headquarters of fraudsters. We've been able to detect kind of dishonest partners within ecosystems where they are trusted partners within a network, but we find that they're actually abusing the platform itself and getting kind of illicit gain from it. And we were able to expose that through the type of data that we provide. And one of my favorites is seeing it happens in kind of ride-hailing type businesses where there's supply and demand algorithms. You see fraudsters manipulating the system or taking advantage of that to drive prices up. And it can work in any ecosystem where there's a supply and demand algorithm. But ride-hailing drivers sometimes get together, create loads of fake accounts, request rides in the area that they're in. And because there's a demand now in the area, the price of rides in that area goes up, but they're all illegitimate requests. And then when your legitimate request comes in and you need a trip to wherever, it's at a higher rate. The fraudulent driver takes that higher rate, makes a higher commission, and so forth. So those are like some complex type of cases that we see. And it's just super interesting to see how technology is finding those things and putting an end to them.
That's amazing to hear. I wasn't even aware that it goes all the way down to even just ride shares, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
there's some really, really interesting stuff that would take a whole nother call and a few hours of what fraudsters get up to, but it's literally mind blowing.
it is. Wow. Okay. All right, let's move on. Next is professional insight. So what emerging trends or technologies do you think will have a significant impact on the future of anti-fraud practices? Or how do you stay updated on the latest technologies?
Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of two parts. So really, I think being new to the space is actually an advantage here because I don't come with any sort of loaded ideas or historical ideas of what's going to impact the future. I just see what I've seen in the time that I've been here and what I've seen change in this short period of time and what seems logically possible to be the biggest impact. And everyone will probably say it, and it's the buzzword right now, it's AI. But if you're using open weighted models that are out there that can be manipulated by fraudsters in ways we're not even sure yet how they will do it, but they just have this force multiplier effect now. They have this extreme scaling technology at their fingertips to do what it is they were doing, but in far more sophisticated ways at a higher speed and scale. So I think that's going to be the big thing of 2024 and into the near future. But equally so, the prevention and the fighting side is going to be powered by AI too. So it's going to be a battle of human ingenuity powered by AI fighting each other. So it's going to be an interesting time. So I would say that's probably the biggest impact coming. It's just going to speed up the scale. I mean, you see the type of deep fakes that are out there now just speaks to what's coming down the line from an identity fraud point of view. And then from a resource point of view, how I stay up to date, I mean, I dove again head into this industry. So there are so many amazing resources. I found almost all of them via LinkedIn. The very first thing I found, actually, to be honest, was via a friend of mine who's in a cybersecurity space. He suggested, hey, I should listen to Fraudology, a fraud podcast by Carice Hendrick. So super famous podcast in this community. Started listening to that, learned a whole lot. And then on LinkedIn, I started finding communities like About Fraud and the new House of Fraud that has recently been launched. Fraud Fighters Alliance now, another new group. There's the Financial Crimes Group. There's crypto groups. There's all sorts of groups for AML, fin crime, fraud, and they're kind of all interconnected. And you see a lot of common faces across all of those groups. They are super valuable resources. And just following these personas on LinkedIn is super valuable. And then more podcasts. There's one called A Journey into Fraud by Ivan Prokov, Fraud Boxer by Jordan Harris, Frank on Fraud newsletter is always a good one. Austin Harris has a new podcast called Fraud Files Unleashed. So all of that content is basically where I get the knowledge that I'm gaining as I go. So fraud fighters in the field helping out other fraud fighters.
That's awesome to hear. I love all of these guys. And also I've got an interview with Ivan, so I can't wait for that to come
Ah, there we go.
So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. So next one. How do you believe collaboration within our community can strengthen anti-fraud efforts? Are there specific initiatives or projects you'd like to see our community undertake to enhance our collective impact?
Well, I mean, like I said, with the siloed nature of within a single organization being a problem for communication to solve fraud matters, get budget, get technology, get resource, all of that kind of thing. That happens on a grander scale between different businesses because most of the time, two different businesses are definitely not talking to each other, nor sharing fraud best practices with each other. But there are these communities out there, MRC, the groups we just spoke about now, Fraud Fighters Alliance, these type of groups where people are getting together to share. And I don't think it's like you're not going to step on anyone's toes or get competitive with each other in the space because you really have a common enemy, which is the fraudster. So you're all trying to stop the same thing and you're trying to stop it just within your ecosystem. So if there's a lot more of these type of initiatives, I think that is really how we stop them. I mean, we find loads of fraud communities out there by fraudsters getting together, using their resources to say, this is how you exploit this platform. This is how you abuse the bonus structure on this platform or whatever it may be. So they're doing it, and they're doing it kind of in the shadows where they're trying not to be as open and as brazen. We can do it like out in public. And so I think this type of thing that we're doing now is exactly what is needed. I don't know about a specific initiative, but what I could suggest is more of fraud fighters drawing on vendors for their knowledge and insights, because the people who start these vendor businesses are deep in the weeds into specific fraud types, and so they build a technology to solve that problem. And by virtue of the fact that they've raised funding and everything they have is going in this direction to make this thing work, means that they are really dedicated to solving the problem within that niche of the fraud fighting space. And so vendors have amazing data, amazing insights, and amazing exposure to multiple industries, multiple clients. And I think fraud fighters can draw on that more, assess technology more often. It also makes my job a lot easier if they are more open to it. But I think that there's kind of a gold mine there, because when you have a good relationship, and you don't necessarily need to be a client vendor relationship, you can just have a good relationship with a vendor that if the timing is right, you would use them as a technology partner. But they're a resource as much as these communities can be. Obviously, it depends on the vendor, it depends on how willing they are to be a part of this community. But I think community is what's going to make us win.
Awesome. That is very good insight. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Okay. Next is advice for peers. So, based on your experience, what advice would you offer to professionals who are relatively new to the field of anti-fraud prevention? Or are there any lessons from your career that you'd like to share with others in the community?
Well, I mean, advice for peers, it's hard to call the fraud fighters my peers yet. I'm still trying to, I'm like getting into the team.
Sure.
I've been invited to the game. I just now need to prove that I can play. So, but I'm new to it. So I can give advice in terms of what I did. And I think you will know where the fraud fighting is for you almost instantly as you started, because you will uncover this hidden passion that you didn't know existed. And if you don't, maybe that's the first signal. I'm not saying it is, and you wouldn't have a good career in fraud fighting, but I think almost everybody who's in this space has that. It's like, this is cool. I want to play detective. I want to stop the bad guys. And wow, I can call it a career at the same time. That's pretty cool. So once you find that and it aligns with your kind of core values, I think that's awesome. And you'll know whether it's for you or not pretty quickly. And from my career so far in this space, I think just being authentic, be yourself, help others where you can, because as you start helping, that wheel turns, life becomes easier, it becomes more meaningful, and your career progresses and your relationships progress, and you get into more conversations, and you end up on calls like this, and it just keeps the momentum just keeps building, kind of like a snowball, if you will.
Future of fraud prevention. So, looking ahead, what do you envision for the future of anti-fraud prevention, and how can professionals prepare for evolving changes?
I mean, prevention and proactive strategies that are powered by AI are going to be what kind of run the future of fraud prevention. Something that runs the entire user journey, and tools and technologies that are all complementary to each other and also complementary to the human beings within the fraud fighting space. Because there's no doubt technology plays a role, and there's no doubt that humans play a role within that too. So it's where all these layers become complementary and not competitive to one another. I see tech that fraud fighters can leverage, and the people who do so effectively and build this complementary stack are the people who are going to win. And so the way to do that is to constantly assess new technology that's out there. I mean, all of the fraud fighters who are in this group and that are online will bear testament to, they are constantly being approached by people like myself to say, hey, we want to show you a piece of technology. just be open and honest with them and say, look, we're not assessing that right now, but I'm happy for you to show it to me so that I can stay ahead of technology and maybe start a relationship that one day turns into something. But constantly assessing tech from these people that are building it is a really good way just to stay ahead of the curve and to stay ahead of what's coming down there. So there's really great info that they can get from that. And so I don't know if that answered your question directly, but kind of felt like that was the answer I wanted to give.
I think it's a great answer. So no worries.
Okay, cool.
It is
Cool.
looking ahead, right? So okay.
Fantastic.
All right. So outside of all these anti-fraud work that you guys do, maybe, let's talk about some fun facts about you. So outside
Yeah,
of your
go on.
profession, awesome. So outside of your professional life, what are some hobbies or interests that you enjoy? Is there like a particular quote or mantra that inspires you in your work or daily life?
Things that I'm passionate about. I'm super big into staying fit and optimizing human health. I'm also really big into ice hockey. That really surprises people a lot because I'm from South Africa where there's no such thing. I actually played ice hockey for South Africa, toured the States, toured Europe, and we played a lot of the teams. So that's always something that surprises people for sure. I'm a massive UFC fan. So I'm not just into fraud fighting, I'm into fighting in reality too, as a sport. I love it. And we have the middleweight champion of the world as a South African now of the UFC. So that's amazing for us. In terms of a particular quote, I think I was speaking about helping others and letting that wheel turn. And I think a quote is a really, I mean, it's super powerful. Is do unto others as you want done unto you. I think that's a quote that you can use across your career, across your life, and be a basic um, foundational statement of how you be a human, really.
Basically, just be a great human being like you.
Try your best. Try your best to be.
Right.
You will fail multiple times, but I think that's the journey: is trying your best and resolving and improving your character over time. Like if you're taking that approach, it should be good. You should have a pretty good ride.
That is awesome. Thank you, Hilton. That's all the questions that I have for you for today. Again, thank you for
Cool.
taking the time, sitting down and letting me like drill you with a few questions.
Like I say, it's all about sharing the knowledge, getting connected. So anybody who wants to hear about what we do over at Shield, I would be more than willing to jump on a call with anybody. No obligation to get into a sales process. Just you want to learn more and you want to know what device level intelligence does for fraud prevention. Absolutely happy to walk anyone through that at any time.
Awesome. Thank you, Hilton. Thank you for your time today.
Cool.